You know, it's not too much of a stretch to equate the death of Barry Humphries over the weekend with the death of comedy altogether, at least for some. I mean, Humphries even had one last joke up his sleeve, dying at precisely the right time to embarrass, well, actually, let's be frank, to take the piss out of the Melbourne Comedy Festival, an event he helped launch but which turned on him. His death showed these cowards for the humourless ideologues they are. Instead of honouring him this weekend at the festival, maybe, you know, cracking a joke in his honour, the organisation released brief statements on social media, and they then had to disable comments on their Facebook post. You see, the best comedians prod and mock everything: the left, the right, the old and the young, all politicians, the supercilious and the self-righteous, and the politically correct. But now, most comedians seem to double as angry, politically correct social commentators. Here's Hannah Gadsby tweeting in 2018, slamming Humphries for supposedly loving those who hold power, hating vulnerable minorities, and losing the ability to read the room. That's not a comedian, she tweeted. That's an irrelevant, inhumane dick biscuit of the highest order. Well, whatever a dick biscuit is. And the irony of this, I mean, great comics don't make their mark by reading the room, they do it by shocking and disrupting the room, not falling into line. Shamefully, in 2019, the Melbourne Festival, a taxpayer subsidised event, mind you, it fell into line when it scrapped the Barry Award, as you know, named for him because of his politically incorrect comments. That's the reason they got rid of his name. Back then, Gadsby led calls for his name to be removed, and the festival director, Susan Provan, said his references to transgenderism as a fashion and reassignment surgery as self-mutilation loomed large in reasons for the removal of the Barry Award. I think those comments were hurtful and inappropriate. It doesn't represent all of his humour, but I don't know what he was driving at, said Provan. The hypocrisy was gobsmacking.
The vicious, nasty things, the foul-mouthed stuff that is said on comedy stages, and they want to punish Barry Humphries. Call him an old git if you want and argue with him, but don't punish him by doing that.
Yeah, these people are the new wowsers, aren't they? Which brings us back to this death of comedy. When you cancel anyone who offends you, by definition, you end up with politically correct comedy.
My wife and I, I love saying wife. Big fan of wife. My wife. Have you met my wife? She's not here. I love it. Wife.
Yeah, and politically correct comedy isn't really comedy at all at times. Even those idolised by the woke left know how poorly Barry Humphries was treated.
I don't think he was properly appreciated by Australia, and I don't think he was properly treated, particularly by the Melbourne Festival, who cancelled him rather late in life. How dare they? He'd had more talent in his little finger than they did in their whole bodies, all of them.
And what about the false friends? ABC presenter Philip Adams tweets now, valet Barry Humphries, I've known you since 1956 and we did lots of things together, including 3 significant films, parting company because of politics differences. But I still regard you as the cleverest person I've ever known. Nice self-praise thrown in there by Adams, but where was he when Humphries was being cancelled by Gadsby and the gang? Having known Barry for 60 years, worked with him from time to time and watched him evolve, it is my sad duty to agree with Hannah, a genius, but... There you go. Add to that hypocrisy Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews, who tweeted just recently, "Tonight we lost a legend. Barry Humphries has contributed more than 7 decades to Australia's entertainment industry, and his legacy will live on through his many larger-than-life characters and iconic writing. Rest easy, possum." OK, so when you read that, presumably Andrews stuck up for Humphries back in 2019 when he was being erased. Well, no, he wasn't that brave. Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews declined to weigh in on the matter, reported The Australian at the time. Humphries despised and lampooned the ideological conformity of his colleagues, and that, in their eyes, seemed to be his greatest sin.
Do you keep silent on politics? Because, I mean, it's said that you're actually politically conservative. Now, I haven't seen any particular evidence of that until now.
No, why should you? My political views are private. And I think it's significant that most lovies, you know, actors and actresses, are always on the left, aren't they? They are always on the left. You don't hear very many of the people who favour the other side.
Yeah, and while comedy should have many and varied targets, at the national broadcasters and across the broader left, they seem to have narrowed their sights onto only one target: conservatives.
If there are any Liberal voters here tonight, I'm sorry that you're here. I'm sorry that you're here and that I'm near you and I need to share oxygen with you. I think you're gross and disgusting and un-Australian. You should be ashamed of yourself.
No matter what your issue is with the Liberal Party, and by the sounds of it there are loads of them, we are ready to work with you.
Have you thought about quiet quitting? It would certainly save us a lot of embarrassment.
And just to be clear, are you leaving the Liberal Party like Julia Banks because the party is too right-wing, or are you leaving like Cory Bernardi because the party isn't right-wing enough?
Now, despite those examples, taking the piss out of conservatives can be funny. Humphries did it all the time. Social conservatives, political conservatives, politicians, talk show hosts. But there are plenty of other targets too. There's progressives, there's the woke, there's political correctness itself, and ourselves, self-deprecation above all else. Humphries opened himself up to a rich vein of material because he took on all comers. His unfunny critics have only one target: their assumed political hate figures. And they're threatening the very existence of comedy because they've run out of politically correct jokes.